I will open City Council regular meeting Tuesday, January 4th, 2022. Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
We have several minutes from last month.
Okay.
Anybody have any corrections? Move to approve the minutes of the December 7th regular meeting, the December 8th retreat, December 9th retreat, and December 14th work session.
Seconded.
Okay, except for passing, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, good. That gets that out of the way. We will go straight to our public comment phase. For those folks who are listening and are considering commenting on the public hearing, that is our next item, please hold off until we do the public hearing. Any topic specific to the zoning text amendment portion, save that for the public hearing. So public comment, though, you're welcome. I have some names to start with. Two names, Beverly and Valerie. You can get those hooked up for us.
They still muted?
Yes.
And let them, tell them they need to unmute.
Bev, you're still muted.
Can you unmute yourself?
One more time, can you unmute on your end? We will move on.
She's new with Zoom.
Hello,
There we go.
can you hear us now?
We can, please, go ahead.
I will speak first. I'm Beverly Labram, one of the owners of 264 Elliott Way. We appreciate the opportunity to give you some input on our feelings. So thank you for giving us this opportunity. We've been renting and doing rental permits for years now for the property at 264 Elliott Way. Usually, we budget our money so that we can pay on time, get our license and our rental permit. But this time, and the letter came in January and said that it's $500. But that really shocked us because we have budgeted for the price that we have been paying for all these years. We did not have a previous notification of this, and we're retired and we're really worried. We want to keep our rental permit and we will rent when we can, but we haven't been renting because of COVID. But we do have a manager that's taking care of our house there. But we use your shops, your restaurants. We used your maintenance men. We've had the arborists out. We don't know what else we can do. We're trying to be a good citizen and a part of the community. But we're very concerned because this is a lot of money to come up with all at once. Can you help us out here?
I just am going to ditto or agree with what Bev has said. And we're not really experienced at this. We're not big hotel managers or anything. And the reason that we opened it up to friends and family and others that we find that want to rent periodically. We just want to give them the opportunity of being in Cannon Beach because it's so special. And we just want you to know that it's a little difficult to see it raised so much without any kind of a notification. I can see where it could be raised, a little bit, even, double or whatever. But gee, almost
Just
4 to 5.
400%.
Yeah,
And that seems quite
quite
high
steep.
to us, quite steep.
I really don't know what else I can say.
Okay, thank you. We will consider it at a future date, but we are aware of what your issues are. So thank you for telling us.
But what can we do? Are you there still?
We're still here, but this is not a discussion time. We just listened to what you were saying.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Brenda Cox.
I don't see Brenda Cox on here.
She's the third owner of that, and they were gonna try to get her to call in, and I'm not sure if they were able to. get
Oh,
her.
okay.
So if she's not on there, she probably could.
I don't see the phone number or Brenda on here.
Okay, anybody raising their hands? Do you see, Christie?
Nope, not right now.
Okay, we will move on. Thank you. I will start with our public hearing on ordinance 2108 regarding ZO 2102 subdivision and zoning tract 1 amendments. This is a hearing requested by the city council, the city of Cannon Beach for subdivision zoning ordinance text amendments. The proposed amendments revise language restricting lot combinations, limiting single-family residential dwelling size, and further restricting lot coverage and floor area ratios for all residential districts, while repealing planned and development language and providing for the reconstruction of pre-existing and non-conforming structures to their existing specifications. The request will be reviewed under Cannon Beach Municipal Code 1786-070 amendments criteria. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the city council to hear this application at this time? Raising your hand, Rusty.
No.
Okay.
The record, no one raised their hands.
Does any councilor believes he or she has a personal bias to declare? Does any councilor believes he or she has a conflict of interest? Has any counselor had any ex parte contacts or made a site visit, which is not pertinent to this? And we have a lot of correspondence. Is there anything new since what you published?
No, and anything that was submitted today has been forwarded to you and is now online as well.
Great, thank you. I do want to just make a short comment that this topic has been in the public eye for a while. The Planning Commission and the DRB have both had open meetings on this topic. So this is not a new item. It's been discussed for a while. We initiated this in order to get certain concerns begun ahead of time before we dive into a massive code I want to say change, but it will be an overview and inspection and review as we need to fix it, because we have recognized that there is a lot of issues that are popping up that are not properly lined out in our codes. But that's still coming. This is all kind of a beginning. So at that, staff report.
We have Jeff Adams on the line, and we also have the presentation of materials ready to be put on the screen. Rusty?
Let's see if we can get Jeff on here.
All right, can you hear me?
Hi, Jeff.
Sound good, Jeff?
All right, great. Thank you. This is Jeff Adams, Community Development Director. And first wanted to say thank you to all the public for their comment. It's been great input, and we got a good turnout here in this past week. I wanted to kind of go over the staff report and the major objectives with the changes. As you know, this came out of a joint work session with the DRB Planning Commission and City Council. Then it went through the Planning Commission process. This is considered the track 1 changes. As you all are aware, we've at least discussed a track 2 and maybe eventually even more, but that will all be done in this coming year under the code audit, which we're expecting to start up in the next few weeks with the consultants. And so Rusty, do you have my slides up there?
I do.
Okay, great. I'll go to those major points. So the main points are we were addressing with lot combinations or recombinations. So taking 1 or 2, 3, 4 lots, combining them to get larger and larger homes. And that's addressed in the first section of the amendments. The second is a tweaking of the floor area ratios and lot coverages into a progressive table. That's the second section. And then it forms really the third option, which is that gross floor area limitation, or the cap, which I think has brought out most of the public comments. And that revolved around a movement at the Planning Commission's recommendation was at 3,500 square feet. And at the last work session with the City Council, that was further restricted to 2,000 for single family homes, and then 2,600 for those with detached accessory structures. And so I've incorporated that within the language within the current draft. We've also, from the very beginning, talked about plan development and repealing that section of the code. And then the fifth concept, which I've further revised in this the current language, is to allow for reconstruction to existing specifications for destruction or demolitions of any kind of non-conforming structures that these ordinances would be thrown into that code. So those are the main points. I want to kind of just touch on the different, we'll go to slide 2 there, Rusty. And so you can see what happens when we take it from the 3,500 down to the 2,000. It changes it from approximately about 5% of our homes. It takes it to at least a third, maybe over, if we start looking at this data that is before you from the Clatsop County's assessor data, which doesn't include garages as part of the gross floor area. So at least a third of the homes would be thrown into non-conforming by dropping it to the what we're expecting to see. And you will see, I think discussion comes in a lot of the public comment has said that, we're not seeing a growth of bigger and bigger homes. That doesn't pan out. In the second table there, you can see as we progress, it progresses from an average square footage of around 1,400 square feet for those built before 1950 to currently around 2,250 square feet. And that, like I said, that's before garages or accessory structures are factored in there. So we have seen a rise, and that's what that third table there kind of summarizes well, how much percentage if we that would exceed 2,000 and 3,500. And so the third slide I wanted to go back to shows that progression and kind of a scatter plot. That's a cumulative average moving up in that reddish pinkish color. And it shows we've had since at least the 60s a growing progression with a little blip there caused by likely just the decrease in numbers caused by the Great Recession. But we're seeing, as the numbers showed in the last 3 years, those numbers rising again on average square footage. And then on the fourth slide, that's showing the percentage in just a bar chart there, graph of the dwellings that would exceed those square footages, with the yellow ones being those above the current language, 2,000 square feet and above. And then, of course, the larger number that the Planning Commission recommended. And the final slide that I've brought out shows that kind of percentage number in a line chart as well. So I just wanted to point those out. We've had plenty of public comments. Like I said, most of them are on that 35, more restrictive, taking it down to 2,000. And I think that's the biggest concern that we see in the general public. But I think the language, we had one good comment about the non-conforming. I tried to highlight that in the staff report of if something is demolished, can they rebuild that? Yes, they can rebuild that. And even the current language allows alterations of non-conforming structures that don't increase the non-conformity. So even those currently, we do allow up to a 50% of the fair market value right now. And the thing that I would also like to point out is that, like the mayor said, this is just track one. You will go through the code audit again in the coming year, which will have another chance to revise this language if it's not to your liking. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Yeah. Request will be reviewed against the criteria in municipal code 178607A amendments criteria. Pertinent criteria to be considered are noted in the staff reports. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards those criteria or other criteria in a comprehensive plan or municipal code which the person testifying believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal based on that issue. Prior to the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence, testimony, arguments regarding the application. The City Council shall grant such requests by continuing the public hearing or leaving the record open for additional written testimony, arguments, or evidence. Persons who testify shall first receive recognition from the mayor, state their full name and mailing address, and appearing in a representative capacity, identify whom they represent. Is there any presentation by the applicant, which is the city? Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, just the presentation that you just heard.
Okay. I will ask now for presentations by proponents. I will also state that I will be watching the clock. Prefer that we do not go over 3 minutes per comment. So with that, we have proponents already listed, so we will start with Caleb Whitmore.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caleb Whitmore. Mailing address is PO Box 1175 in Cannon Beach, and I'm representing myself and my wife. And from the proponent standpoint, I asked to speak on both proponent and opponent. Proponent-wise, what I wanted to say is that I lived in Seattle when Seattle started really increasing its density, and one of the marked issues was subdivision of lots and building of large, square, flat-roofed house boxes that really were out of style with the neighborhood. Seattle at the time was trying to increase density, so maybe it made sense from their city goals. I would probably agree with what's proposed that we should take some steps to perhaps modify things like lot combination in certain areas that are already fairly dense in Cannon Beach. I'm not sure that it should be all, but I think there's a good wisdom in trying to maintain the community character, but that can probably be done with specific language around style of building and existing ratios. But I think there's good wisdom in what you're proposing there. And I think plan developments, I don't really see how that makes sense for the community. So those are my thoughts on proponent, and I have more thoughts I'd like to share on opposing portions of what I think is problematic for us based on my experience and my family's needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Kira. Next, I have Jan Siebert-Harmon.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, Jan. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Jan Siebert-Warmond, and this letter is also from my husband, Wes Warmond, P.O. Box 778, Cannon Beach, Oregon 97110. Dear Mayor and City Councilors, Happy New Year to you all. Regarding ordinance number 21-08, we support the following Track 1 amendments. First, the prohibition of combining or recombining parcels and lots in Cannon Beach. Next, the repeal of planned unit developments, PUDs, in Cannon Beach once and for all. Finally, and very importantly, the limiting of floor area ratios, FARs, to only allow a total of 2,000 square feet of all single-family dwellings or 2,600 square feet for single-family dwellings with detached accessory structures. We believe these smaller home sizes, which are really not that small, will encourage significantly more trees to be preserved in our community. The village character of Cannon Beach, which is featured in our comprehensive plan, and the wooded character of Cannon Beach, which is highlighted in our municipal code tree ordinance, are at stake. Thank you for your courage and your insight in regard to this important matter.
Thank you, Jan. Lisa Kerr.
Hello?
Hello, Lisa, go ahead.
Hi, I sent in a letter and it said what I have to say. Did you receive it?
We did.
Yes.
Well, I have nothing to add to the letter, really. It would just be parroting the letter, so I don't want to waste your time.
Thank you very much. We read your letter and we still have it. So
Okay.
for those who want to read it, it is on the website. And with all the other letters we got.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I will ask if there's anybody else who wants to raise their hand as a proponent. Not seeing any. We will move on to any presentations by opponents. And I have my list for Caleb again. So let Caleb come back.
Hi again. Okay, so from the opposing side of this, what I want to share with you is from my perspective as a family. So we have 4 kids, and my concern with the cap on square footage being an arbitrary number versus being something ratio based is that it really excludes and disenfranchises existing homeowners for families specifically, at least from my experience. So with my current house, it's about 1,700 square feet, which is what I understood it to be when I bought it, and which I believe it sounds like the data being used refers to square footages, not including garages and porches. My main concern, again, based on experience in Seattle, when Seattle tried to deal with the challenges with development that it was facing, they applied a square footage cap. And what happened was families who needed to build out a basement or an attic and add living space to their home to accommodate growth of their family, for whatever those changes are, which really could be any change, and that's that family's particular needs, they couldn't do it. And a lot of families had to leave the city and move out. They put their house on the market. People moving into town with more money happily bought it up. Price per square foot went up. All houses went up in cost, and we lost families in Seattle. Cannon Beach, in the code and in the vision for even this ordinance, you restate that the vision includes diverse housing and diverse community, and that needs to include families. We're already struggling enough to have families living in Cannon Beach. And if you add an arbitrary square footage, it means we can't make our home work for us. So as my kids are moving into their teen years, we will probably and expect to need to add living space in unbuilt out portions of our attic. My understanding of this code is there would be no support for that at 1,700 square feet. Once I add my garage and porches, I'm out of space. I'm already non-conforming. So I think you're going to find that if you do this, you're going to cause a lot of hardship and problems for families who need to add it. We've also been foster parents in the past, and it was suggested in one conversation that there's a conditional use process to apply for, which I didn't see any accommodation for. But even in that, a foster kid coming in or grandparents or parents moving in to live with you, as we've also had happen. My wife's grandparents moved in rather rapidly into our home in Seattle, and we lived there, and we modified our house to be able to give them space to live as they lived out their last few months of life in a home that could love and care for them well. These are issues that affect real people. And I get the need to maintain the village character. And I think that can be done, but you can't do this to harm families. And that's what I think is not being considered here. Families that live, as the pandemic has showed us, have to now work from home and school from home. And if we add to our family, whether by a new birth or by fostering or by other family moving in temporarily or on a long-term basis, it's really going to impact people's lives negatively. And I don't think that is consistent with the vision that is stated in the city. So I hope that you will choose wisely to use ratio-based and good measures to maintain village character, but allow people to use the homes they've already purchased and invested in. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Tim Ramey.
Hi there, can you hear and see?
Hi, Tim, go ahead.
Thank you. So my name is Tim Ramey. I speak on behalf of my wife and I. We are residents and voters in Cannon Beach. My address is P.O. Box 429, Cannon Beach. There's several things that I'd like to touch on. One is just, let's keep the data clean. All the data that Jeff presented and all the data that exists in the world relative to square footage and floor area ratios and so on does not include porches, covered porches, and does not include garages. So any discussion we have, let's please keep the data clean. All of Jeff's data should have had asterisks next to it because it's not comparable in any way to the size limitations that the council is considering. Second, I'm actually quite favorably disposed towards the tables in section 2 and think there's a lot of wisdom there. It's just the arbitrary square footage cap. And I'd like to illustrate that by talking about two houses that many of us would know about. There's one on East 5th Street across from West Shirley Park. There's one on 6th Street right across from Councilor Risley's house. Both are under construction, neither one of which could be what they are right now under the language and the ratios that you drafted. Simply put, those houses would either not exist, I think, in the case of the triangle lot one on 5th Street, or would be much smaller in the case of the house opposite Councilor Risley's residence, because the setbacks would mean that they couldn't possibly build the house that they built. So I think we're all in favor of making sure there are no, monstrous houses on miniature lots. And that's what your ratios accommodate. What we don't want to see is people who have large lots prohibited from building large houses. They invested in the community and they've got the right to do that. And we would adamantly oppose, and I think I speak for a lot of people, we would oppose any sort of arbitrary cap that doesn't vary with the floor area, or with the total gross square footage of the lot. Finally, our Chapman Point HOA raised some very relevant issues that I hadn't thought about before, but this gap between the 50% value and the 80% value, that's got to be addressed. If my house burned down, but it was 75% burned down, I would have a problem. I couldn't rebuild. So we've got to consider that. And there was some very good legal work that went into that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, I see Jared Pastor.
I thought I saw him up above.
Yeah, there he is.
Can you hear me now?
Jared, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, City Council and members and staff. For you that don't know me, I'm Jared Pastor, P.O. Box 737, Cannon Beach. I've lived here my whole life, off and on. It's a very beautiful place, and I hope that it stays this way. I just wanted to voice a situation that kind of affects me and my family. I am all for a lot of the ordinance 2108. There are some things that I do agree with, such as combining lots together to make bigger houses. I'm not a fan of that. I don't think I ever will be. But for future reference for my family, we've been doing a lot of discussing about trying to become more closer, becoming a bigger family, moving in together. And although our square footage is only 1,400, so we're nowhere close to the 2,000. We were hoping to want to get to that point at some time in our life to all live together. And I think that this ordinance and zoning situation that we have would kind of push us back. And that's all I really have to say. I did write a letter, so I know that you guys can kind of seen more into my situation. But that's all I got to say for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ashley Craven.
Hello, are you able to
Hello,
hear
go
me?
ahead.
Hi. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to address the panel. My name is Ashley Craven. My address is 2866 Northwest Shenandoah Terrace in Portland, 97210. I'm addressing the committee today on behalf of my family. We have owned a parcel of land in Cannon Beach for 52 years. My grandparents purchased the property and it's been in our family ever since. So we've been watching sort of from afar as these last few meetings have occurred, and it's become clear that these changes would significantly impact the future of our property. Currently, it has a home on it. These zoning changes, they're just favoring families or homes that cannot accommodate families. They're small. There's either no family capability, and currently our home is about 1,200 square feet, and it was put on the property in 1952, and it's not going to be able to stay a whole lot longer, and so it will need to be replaced. And we have 3 generations of family now who currently are alive that would hope to be using the home, and we don't want to do anything monstrous. I mean, we support the community's wish to maintain the integrity of the bungalow characteristic that's so important, but we do feel that the limitations to the sizes of the homes are working against those seeking to have larger families, families who hope to live in the community, multiple generations who would seek to live under one roof. I just wonder how much the city is focusing on the concerns of families and livability with these impacts and the proposed zone changes. And I also wonder if they're consistent with the comprehensive plan and the statewide planning goal 10. There's going to be a market impact to all owners of residentially zoned property if this is applied as it is discussed today. These property owners are suddenly going to be unable to add onto existing housing or build new houses at square footages that are currently allowed. This will reduce the value of the land in Cannon Beach. The economic impact to the property owners will create a potential for conflict with the city, and I think that, I think the community, we're all in favor, I think, of thoughtful governance and, preventing monstrous homes on miniature lots and, big glass boxes that are modern and out of character. I just wonder if there aren't other ways that those items and those issues could be addressed that are less maybe harmful to the community as a whole, or maybe less impactful to so many families that might hope to live and raise families in Cannon Beach. So thank you for the opportunity to address you all.
Thank you. Right on, 3 minutes. Okay, next one, Allison Reynolds.
You guys hear me, hopefully?
Oh, yes.
Great. All right. Hi, I'm Allison Reynolds. Address is 760 Southwest 9th Avenue. I'm in Portland, and I'm here on behalf of 564 Oak Street LLC. We also sent in a letter, but it was a little late, so not sure if you guys have had a chance to read it yet. So we don't oppose the city's original goal with this ordinance to limit the lot combination and preserve the village character downtown. However, we're concerned about some of the other changes being proposed that have the potential to impact existing homes and would prevent certain areas of the city that have those kind of larger home communities from retaining that character. So first, I want to elaborate on something that Tim Ramey raised a couple of comments back. We looked at the rules for rebuilding or changing homes that will be non-conforming under this ordinance due to their size, and we think that some additional changes are needed for financing reasons. So the way it's currently written, an owner can make changes and spend up to 50% of the home's value, and it can, stay that same size. And then also, if a home is damaged to 80% or more of its value, then the owner is able to fix that damage and it can be put back at the same size. But this leaves a gap between 50% damage and 80% damage where the home doesn't qualify for either fix. And so we consulted with some lenders who do mortgages, and they think it's actually going to create problems for getting a mortgage because they use that home as the collateral. So if it suffers this kind of damage, then they could be stuck in a position where, what if you walk away and then they have something where you can't really put it back like it was supposed to. And so since this ordinance is going to impact so many of the homes in Cannon Beach, if that size limit remains, we just really think it's important that you amend the ordinance to allow on this size issue for a larger home to be fixed if there's any damage level and be able to remain that same size so that you don't run into financing problems with these. And so on a second sort of related point, for the owner-initiated spending, which can be 50% of the home's value under the ordinance, we also think it's important to allow owners to spend as much as they need to improve existing homes. And the reason for this is that for newer homes, 50% of the value is probably enough to do what you need and keep it up over time. But for older homes that have been neglected, this limit does not provide enough to fix the home or will cause owners to do things like take shortcuts, like avoiding getting permits so their work doesn't count against that limit, or skipping things like energy upgrades that we probably want them to do, or just knock down the home. And that we think is going to have some impacts on the Cannon Beach character. And I guess last, we just want to echo the points made by others so far this evening and in the written testimony that the 2,000 square foot limit is just not a good fit for the city as a whole. The floor area ratio limits that council is thinking about will ensure that larger homes are developed only on larger lots. And we just think it's a much more reasonable way to maintain the character of these different areas of the city and also allow for that multi-generational living, homes that accommodate families and all the stuff that's been talked about. So that's all I've got. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them, especially on that mortgage issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Good. That ends my list. So I will ask if there are any hands to be raised as soon as Rusty can get. There we go. Hands raised for more opponents. Oh.
Yeah, there's one.
Right.
Good evening.
Good evening. I was expecting Gina.
Yeah, Gina is my wife. My name is Shane Hawkins. We're at 4624 Logan Lane in Cannon Beach. Our Portland address is 210 Northeast Laurelhurst Place. We've owned property on the North Oregon coast for a couple decades. My family has owned homes on the North Oregon coast for 40 years. We really enjoy spending our time at the Oregon coast. And we live in the Laurelhurst neighborhood in Portland, which is a historic district. I've been on the, helped us gain historic status. I believe in saving homes and saving structures. I believe in the energy that the council has for saving Cannon Beach and preserving Cannon Beach. But I strongly disagree with putting a cap on square footage. Floor area ratios are a much better way of managing what you're trying to do. And I urge you to look at the public comment, not only in this meeting, but in previous meetings where I've written and voiced my opinions. Floor area ratios is a better way to proceed. And I appreciate your time and I appreciate all the energy you guys have put into looking at these. but I would wholeheartedly ask you to listen to the constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. Last call for opponents. Okay. With that, I will get rid of my clock here. Hang on, let me get back to where I need to be. Great. And we will. Staff, is there anything staff responding to?
Jeff, do you have any comments?
Yes, yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Jeff, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I want to first, once again, thanks for the excellent feedback from the public. That's why we have public comment. They just do a great job of looking over all points. One thing I wanted to speak to especially is Mr. Ramey's and Allison's comments about the 50%. They are correct that language, the way that it's written, it's definitely written from a non-conforming perspective to bring non-conforming structures into conformity. It's a rather easy fix, I believe. You could change that to homes destroyed 50% or more, or just any home destroyed. So you can ask me to bring back that language. I would strongly recommend that, you know, from perspective on such a big change, that we get this language right. And so I'd be happy to bring that back next month with that change. And then if you decide on the to take into account a different square footage on the gross floor area, I'm happy to revise that language. I believe the Planning Commission's recommendation at a cap at 3,500 was in keeping with what I believe the intent of this was when it was originally designed as a track one change, to put a cap at an upper limit and keep that progressive floor area ratio, as much of the public comment has been stressing. That does a lot in itself. The cap came in during the Planning Commission phase, but there were various options that they looked at, one being without just letting the floor area ratios and lot coverage take care of the square footage. But then again, they decided to go with the cap at 3,500. Once again, Mr. Ramey spoke about those numbers not, should come with an asterisk. I did explain that in the staff reports, that those weren't including garages or accessory non-finished areas. So those numbers would rise. And so I think all of the comments were excellent, but I just wanted to address that financing problem and that 50 to 80% gap that's out there. Thank you. Let me know if you have any other questions.
Any questions for Jeff?
I have one.
Mike?
Jeff, this is Mike. Is there a way to look at the floor area ratio on a more linear progression rather than the step functions? Whenever I ran examples of these various step functions, there were some anomalies that existed where, for example, somebody could give up 1 square foot of their acreage and end up with a larger house because of the way the step function works for a range. So I'm just wondering, I like floor area ratios, but you end up with some kind of crazy results, I think, by having either very large steps, which in your example they were, or having much smaller steps, which ultimately gets down to just having a curve. So I don't know if you've looked at something like that, or if you think that could be done that would address some of these issues and still provide that there's a maximum reasonable building for any particular lot size.
Yeah, Mike, I do think that you could just go with as it's written now, just a straight number without the progression, and restrict those numbers more if you felt like it. Take it down another tenth of a point. But I think that was suggested a few years ago, and I think there was a lot of controversy or pushback on that. With these track one changes, what we were trying to do was just kind of give a basic one, and then we will get into these kind of details and going over these kind of numbers. And I think the most important point will be going over it in more granularity. In other words, we can look at this as an overlay district or putting ratios or certain types of, even we talked about form-based codes in certain areas that further restrict kind of the envelopes and what we're looking at through a better kind of more granular, instead of just saying for the whole city and for all residential zoning, which is what we're basically doing here. This is really that broad brush, and that's why, I think if we go below and start messing further and further with the numbers, we're defeating the purpose of dividing this up into two tracks and getting the majority done right now, when we'll come back to this hopefully within this next year.
Okay, thank you. One other question for Jeff. Your work with the Planning Commission, are they looking at a design review or a code for the design of residential properties like there currently is for commercial properties? Seems to me that a lot of the character of Cannon Beach is in its style, not just size. Size alone doesn't capture the essence of the village character, and yet residential zoning has restrictions on appearances and materials used and architectural style. So my question is, will you or are you already looking at considering a design review for residential?
Yes, Mike. I think DRB, Planning Commission, and even at that joint work session we held, that was part of the discussion. When we go through that code audit, like I said, hopefully starting this month or next month, we will start looking at that as one of our options going forward. And I would definitely see that, if not across the board in residential, at least in certain areas.
Thank you.
Nancy, it looked like I had a question.
Well, this might sound like a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. We have a proposed cap of 2,000 square feet in a house, but then we have the FAR grid, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, but it looks to me like if you look at the grid and the square footage that's allowed to be covered on a lot, in many cases, it's considerably more than 2,000 square feet. So how does that jive with the proposed cap?
Nancy, it's a great point. I think one of our public comments, at least when I spoke to someone about that, I chose to leave that table in there. Just it would not function. And if you guys end up deciding to increase it to 3,500 or whatever, that's the reason I left that table in there. But if you guys choose to keep it at 2,200, 2,600, we would review that and see if that's a necessary table. If not, we'll remove that as a technical change because it may not function.
So you might, if we decide we want to continue with the 2,000 cap, you'd have to change that grid to reflect that in the lot coverage, right?
Yeah, it would likely, in other words, we would pull it if it's not a functioning part of the code. Yeah.
Yeah, because the way it is now, using the table or the grid would allow something much larger than what we've capped it at.
Exactly.
And
Yes,
so effectively, those last several steps don't mean anything because it's already been capped at a lower level. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just confusing, I think, to me anyway.
It's also conflicting.
If there are no more specific questions for Jeff, we will move on. But I would like Jeff to stick around so that we might have more questions.
Definitely.
Okay. So with that, I'll close the public hearing and move for consideration. And we can now have our discussion. Before I go into any script here. I'll start with one interesting part of this, the percentage for when there is damage or consideration for a redevelopment of an existing building. I find it very odd that we use value to measure size. I think that is one of the real troubling issues with this, and the young lady at the end brought that forward pretty well by saying that an older building is harder or more expensive to bring up to code than a new building would be for the same amount of size. So value does not make a good means to measure,
Only Jeff.
an addition or a remodel. So I think that's something that we should seriously look into, not now, but when we go into the code audit more detailed. I'll start with that.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to say I'm concerned, but I question why somebody could not, if you have a footprint that's 2,000 square feet, why would you not be allowed, according to some of the testimony we've either read or heard tonight, why would you not be allowed to finish out an attic? Or why would you not be allowed to finish out a basement? Even if your house, if your footprint is 2,000 square feet, why couldn't you go ahead and do that?
Because it increases the living space within that envelope.
Yeah, but there must be some way we could work it out so that people could finish out.
Well, there is, but stating it the way we stated it doesn't do that.
Yeah, even if the footprint is, even if they don't change the footprint of the house, they just change the interior.
Yeah,
But it is possible to do what you're saying, but you need to state that.
Well, and like an attic may actually not be the height that is required.
Well, oftentimes
For
that's
living.
exactly what you see here, that someone has to add a dormer. And that's where they have to get a variance because they're adding a non-conforming structure.
Right.
So it's not as simplistic as it seems.
Yeah. I think that's something we need to consider, though.
Yeah, I agree with that, because when we get into this portion of the code audit and we start looking at what is the problem that we're running into, and that is a visual from the exterior. What happens on the interior basically is code for building code and fire code and space and stuff like that. But, if you can increase your living space within the interior without changing your envelope, what's the difference for the problem that we are trying to address of the overly large?
I think we discussed it recently. What we're really looking at is the mass of a structure sitting on a lot.
Right.
And if you're not expanding the footprint and the height, which we have limits on as well, then whether they use a garage for living space or an enclosed porch or even attic space, it's not changing the aesthetics from the street. So I guess I don't see why we should limit the floor area, the habitable floor area, if there's an ability to have an increase in the habitable floor area without changing the envelope of the building.
Obviously, that's not part of what we're talking about tonight, but it is what we want to talk about. in the future.
And it would muddy the,
Oh, yeah. The next step would be, okay, if somebody does want to increase their square footage, that's where the floor area ratios would come in and perhaps a design review process. So the 2,000 square foot was too dramatic for me. I understood where we were going from. And I also understand that what we were hearing was all for smaller buildings. We had not heard from these folks that we've heard from tonight through comments and letters. So I think this is part of the process for me to have the opportunity to hear all directions, not just two sides.
I do think, though, that when I look at who is responding to this and wanting larger homes, it seems to be the second home market people more than the people who live here locally. I did hear, like Pastor and some of the other locals have concerns, but I was just looking up what Caleb Whitmore had said about his property and how he'd like to make it bigger because it's not quite the size he'd like to be. He said 1,700. I think I looked it up and it's 1,781, which isn't that much bigger. But when he advertises it as a second home rental, he's advertising it for 10 guests, 4 bedrooms, 11 beds, and 3 baths. And to me, that's kind of a whole other way that he's looking at it. So I think there's a lot to look at individually in these arguments.
You know, I'm hearing no real opposition to the first 2 parts of this. That is, no combining of lots and getting rid of the PUD. And we certainly ought to go ahead and approve that. To the square footage and that whole thing, there's not a clean, simple solution that's going to satisfy everybody. But kind of what Sam was talking about, the 2,000 foot cap would put 1/3, 33% of the existing housing out of over the limit. What we're trying to do is preserve what we have out here, the look and size and style. I think saying 2,000 square feet, we're already exceeding that with 1/3 of the houses. If we made that cap at, let's say, 2,500, well, 2,000 square feet. Excuse me, I gotta put on my glasses. If we made the square footage 2,000 plus or up to 2,500, there'd still be 20% of the houses exceeding that. If you go to 3,000 square feet, 3,000 square feet, there would only be 10% of the current existing housing that would be out of
conformity.
Out of conformance. So, and yet if you go to that 36 or 3,500, it's almost nobody's out. And that's saying we're going to preserve even the bigger houses. So, I can see moving the cap up above 2,000, although personally, I have a problem. Who needs more than that? But apparently a lot of people think they do. And people have bigger families than I have. But if we made it even 2,500 square feet or 3,000 square feet cap would still capture 90%, over 90% of our current homes without putting them out of conformance. But then you get that whole visualization. You really want to have everybody that's below that start adding on and building. And so they've all got a 3,000 square foot home. It's, you know, when you put that cap in that area, it says anybody can build right up to that. Keep adding, keep adding. And I think that's what we want to avoid. Even though we already have a bunch there, does that mean everybody should go there? I guess my recommendation would be to maybe revisit that floor area ratio, but accept the other provisions in this ordinance, get that behind us.
Yeah, I agree up to the point that to me, a cap is not the tool to use. We need to find a better tool. It's kind of like fixing a watch with a sledgehammer. You just done. It's either or not, you know.
We can fine tune that floor area ratio that accomplishes that same percentage of size of building to size of lot. I think that's going to address most of our problem, or at least our concerns.
I want to say to ask maybe Jeff, you know, we were working on this fast track. So this is phase 1 of the fast track. Phase 2 is the code audit. Maybe we do a phase 1.1 and focus on this for a good discussion. And but go ahead with everything else on the phase 1 fast track.
Well, there's another thing that hasn't been discussed, and I'd like to voice it, and it's been voiced in the public testimony, is that to cap square footage on lots that are bigger than 50 by 100 lots. And I personally don't feel comfortable limiting the size of homes on if they have, you know, larger space to be able to do that.
Rephrase that.
I don't feel comfortable, you know, if somebody had larger than a 50 by 100 lot.
Like 0.15.
Or larger, but just to, you know, is there some way to, if we were to agree to a square footage cap, would we want to have that as a blanket rule for all lots of regardless of size?
I think that's why the 3,500 number was as high as it was.
I agree. And so, you know, people wouldn't be as comfortable, it doesn't sound like they are, with that on a 50 by 100 lot, but are you on a larger lot?
Well, the 50 by 100 lot, if you use the floor area ratio and the allowable term, the footprint, you wouldn't get to 3,500 anyway. The floor area ratio and the footprint don't allow you to get to that size on a 5,000 square foot lot. So I think what we're saying, the percentage of building, let's say building mass, building size to lot is something that's appealing, but if you have a lot twice as big, you shouldn't be allowed twice as big a house. So that's why these tables go, you know, 0.5, 0.4, 0.3 to try to scale down the size and provide more land, more open space around them. I'm not sure what we've got right now is the best way. Probably isn't. If this is a two-step process where we're going to come back and revisit that, then I guess I could go along with the any cap. I mean, but it sounded like it went back to what the Planning Commission recommended, 3,500. It'll quiet a lot of our constituents down, but it's still going to have to be addressed.
35 is too big.
It's just, well, like I say, I came up and said at 25 to 3,000, you're covering the vast majority of the currently existing houses, trying to preserve the character and that size. So what if we, I mean, like I say, 2,500, I think, gives us, covers 81.6% of the current housing stock. So that leaves, almost 20% that's still going to be out of conformance. That's because they're too big, 2,000, it just gets where you only have 9% out of conformance if you went to 3,000.
One of the other parts, and to me, this kind of answers what I think is your concern, or somebody has 10,000 square foot lot and they got this littler spot where they got the space to put in a bigger place, but we are trying to avoid large single structures. My solution, or my thing would be to put the 2,500 square foot cap kind of idea on any single structure. But they could still be allowed to have more square footage. That would be my answer to it. So we're not getting a whole bunch of huge buildings, but we're getting reasonable sized buildings in more better layout. But again, that depends on the property and the designer and the owners and how they want to work with it. So I think that's like, to cap is the wrong tool. And I think that's what we need some research, and we need some really out of the box thinking as to how to do this. So we're not find a way to measure and present, and design review is a good tool. At some point.
For residential.
For residential. I mean, I don't know. You could almost say anything that kicks in over a certain size kicks into design review. Anything under that size, kind of a freebie. We'll see. I don't know. That's a discussion that I want to have, but it's not tonight's ordinance because we got this stuff. And again, we'll go back to what Mike said. We are pretty much in agreement with everything else except this cap number.
And the language concerning the amount that could be rebuilt on a structure.
Yeah, that looked a little squishy too, so.
Yeah, but Jeff said he would develop some language for that.
And that could work up until we have a better chance to talk about it and think about it. Because I think there's other details in that, and it depends also whether we have a cap or not.
Well, is the council feeling like you'd like to head towards the motion, or are we looking to table this and get some different language?
Well, I'd like to see some action on the combination of lots language as soon as possible.
I agree.
And
well, even on, and I agree with that 100%. But in order to move this along as it's been presented, to be able to vote on it, we can make an amendment.
Yes.
But the only amendment I can think of that addresses the concerns would be to every place that says 2,000, make it 3,000, and still have the 600 square foot for an ADU, and just move ahead and come back and visit that later. Now, maybe it's not 3,000, maybe it's 2,500.
Yeah, I can't do 3.
I would support 3.
What?
Yeah.
I would rather go closer to 25 to 2,800.
Yep, 25.
And when this discussion started, it was about, character and what is appropriate. I mean, there was 5,000 square foot lots and they generated homes of a certain size. And there are people possibly investors or whatever, that they're thinking, I want a house that's at least as big as I can possibly get it on there. And they're just going to look at that number. And so I think that's where it's hard to get to that point. But I think if you're going to set a limit, set the limit, not to try to get the most of somebody that's going to be coming and building, because I'm a strong believer that the city is about the people that live there. And if that's who's trying to go ahead and say, all right, this is a community, this is what we are, I think that we should go ahead and set those points. And again, somebody that's investing or thinking about living here later, something like that, might love to build a 3,500 or 3,000 square foot. But if it doesn't seem to be appropriate for the folks that are here, then I think that that's what you should be basing your sizes on. And it does seem to me that the floor area ratio is a good tool for that. But I forgot who it was that said it. I think you need to be careful that if your lot is 5,000, it doesn't automatically mean a 10,000, gets you twice as big of a house. I think that there has to be a scale there that you work with, or a line that you go and remember what it is you're trying to do is to not overbuild. And I think that right now the controls are not there, and whatever controls you put in place is going to be our future. And so what future do you want to see for the community?
If you look at just the table for the single family structure, if you have, I don't know how you pick these ranges, but I'll use something midpoint. You have a 5,000 square foot standard city lot, and you use the table, it says lot coverage can be half of that. So there's 2,500 square feet. It then says the floor area ratio can be larger than that, which I guess allows you to have a second story. You can make it smaller footprint. You could put 1,250 square feet on each floor, makes it smaller but taller. It seemed to work all the way down to, let's say, a triple lot, 15,000 square feet. You'd have a 30,000 square foot, 3,000 square foot lot coverage. And that'd be 4,500 square foot house on it, with just the table without putting a cap on it. Which it just seems to me that this ratio is growing too fast. Mm-hmm. And if there's a way to just say you can't step up such big steps, we may be able to do it without having to put a cap on it. It's just that the lot coverage, floor area ratio by themselves, with probably, I think, smaller steps, will work. Once somebody gets a couple of acres out there, then you really care.
Yeah, and how many lots are there like that?
Well, there's a lot of them that currently have houses on them that might ultimately be replaced.
I guess to your point, though, that I don't favor a cap that would put 30% of our existing homes out of, in a non-conforming. I just don't see that as good land use planning.
And that's what the current 2,000 square foot cap does. Go ahead.
After what Bruce was saying, I kind of feel like what this fast track intention was put the brakes on, tap the brakes, so that we can then get to the code audit and really refine it and figure it out. So, and again, Jeff said the same thing, and the fact that this is this is the first step. The next step will be more detailed. And hopefully we'll start that this year. Get some of it focused on. So I'm, again, not liking the idea of a cap. I'm willing to work with a cap with that consideration, that I'm going to talk about getting rid of caps when we talk about the code audits. But I understand what the cap is intended to do tonight. As far as changing the number, I think we should. I don't like 2,000. I would work with 2,500 is not that much of a difference, but 3,000 is too much, somewhere in there. Also considering, hang on a second, Bruce. I lost my thought. Go ahead.
I didn't mean to do that. What I would recommend is that you have two items that you have agreement on. And then the other one, you can see how hard it is to come up with a number, that I think that we should kind of adjourn that part of it and then really take a look at how do we want to measure that? How do we want to control that? Rather than try to say, well, I don't like this number, but I'll agree with this number. Because we really will not have had the chance to go ahead and really think that part out too. And also, as Nancy pointed out, if we do, we built in conflicts into our code. So I think it needs more time and consideration. I would suggest it move forward on the other two items. And again, especially the double lot, because that's something that in other communities that have gotten to the point, there's no buildable lots. I'll make myself a big lot by knocking down a couple houses.
Why don't we go ahead and amend or make a motion to amend this ordinance by deleting section 2, I think it is section 2, which addresses the whole floor area coverage and lot coverage. And deleting that from this ordinance, we'll keep it in place now. And then just go ahead and accept minus that section.
Can we get Jeff's input?
Jeff, can you chime in, please?
Can you hear us, Jeff?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Hello? Okay.
Did you hear
Yeah,
Mike's?
yeah, and so we can easily take out section 2. I would offer that I agree with that we should amend that section 4 about the to 50% or more instead of at 80% or more, and that solves that 50 to 80% gap.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's section 4.
I thought.
Yeah, that.
I did have a question on that section 4, Jeff.
Okay.
It talks about destruction by destruction by natural causes. Or something that I don't have the language with me right now, but something about destruction by natural causes and not by something that the owner did. And I'm wondering about something like fire, an accidental cause by fire or something. It doesn't really talk about that kind of situation.
Yeah, that's what that language is written for, though, is for fire. And that is that's language I've seen in pretty much every other. It's just saying that an owner can't take out a demolition permit and tear it down and then, rebuild. This is caused by any other action than that is like a fire or a hurricane or something. Yeah.
Okay. So any other actions? Okay. To an existing 80%. Okay. Now this is by market value that the county puts on it. Market value is a lot less usually. The county's market value is usually a lot less than the true market value of a home. So how does that affect somebody who's trying to rebuild? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
You could have an appraisal.
I first wanted to speak to this is because, see, this language that we're looking at is for non-conforming structures. And so the normal reason that it's there is that you're trying to give some ground to those homes that need to be rebuilt because of some kind of damage. But it's also, in most non-conforming, is to tacitly move them towards conformity. So to have them build back at conforming. So what we're considering now, though, is not speaking to that. In other words, very rarely, like you said, we're looking at fair market value. I think if you pull up what we look at is the improvement value on that property. We're not looking at the land value. So you're looking at the improvement value from the assessor's data. And very rarely, only, I think Allison said it best, it's only on those older kind of falling into disrepair homes that are even going to, this 50 to 80% is going to matter. So really, it doesn't take much. Often we'll see somebody come in with a remodel of a kitchen that is sometimes more than some of these older homes. So it does not take much more to exceed that fair market value rate.
Okay. So we'll take the county fair market value.
Yeah, that's what we take. Yeah.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to propose for the council is, let's do this in two motions. One, Mike's delete second section, and then a second motion to cover the 50% or more. I think that makes it a little easier to understand.
Yeah, two amendments.
So let's make amendments to the ordinance before we go into reading the ordinance.
Sam, before we do that, Jeff had offered to bring us back next month, wording for the.
You could do that too. That's an option.
I just feel less comfortable just making some type of decision on it tonight.
Okay.
I think we all agree that we want to adopt the prohibition against recombining lots. Can we do that tonight?
And proposed
PUD
planned unit development.
That would be another option.
Oh, and planned development, yeah.
That would be another option, is to proceed with those two sections and just vote on those sections.
That's fine with me. That's fine with me.
Are you okay with that, Jeff?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
All right. Except, just technically, what we have before us is an ordinance that includes all these sections.
Right.
So I don't think we can just vote on part of the section. I think we have to amend this ordinance.
Yeah.
So in our script, there is a section in here. And this is a script I got from Ashley before. So we can move the first reading by title. We read the title and then we discuss it, and amendments can be voted on and adopted during this time. So you read the title, we discuss the amendments we want to make, vote on the amendments, and then vote on the approval of reading it the first time, and then we do the second time. And because it kind of, I mean, when you say it out loud, it sounds funny, but there's a list on the script.
Okay. Oh, boy, okay. So the amendments go on the last page where it says amendments. This is interesting texturally because we're amending the zoning ordinance already. So we're making an amendment to this amendment. So the first part.
I move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 21-08.
Seconded. For the purpose of amending Title 16 subdivision and 17 zoning ordinance, including text amendments, revising lot combinations, residential dwelling limitations, lot coverage, or floor area ratio limitations for all residential districts while repealing planned developments and providing for the reconstruction of pre-existing and non-conforming structures to their existing specifications. Now, that was the reading. Now amendments can be voted on and adopted during this time. So
I would move to delete section 2, or excuse me. Bring it, yes. Section 2, the progressive residential, all sections of section 2.
Is this question, Jeff? Jeff, does that seem to accomplish what we were discussing before about eliminating the PUDs and not being able to combine two lots as one?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, that would do that. Just only thing you're losing with by getting rid of section 2 is just the floor area ratio, lot coverage, revisions along with the cap.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Just want to make sure you were getting what you wanted.
okay, we should do a roll call on this.
Okay, so we are voting on the amendment right now.
Correct.
Counselor Risley,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Mayor Seidel.
Yes.
So now we voted.
Do we have another amendment for the 50% wording?
I would suggest that you wait till we hear from Jeff.
So shall we cut this whole, cut section 4 until we can get?
We could just cut out.
Better
section
text. We could do that the next meeting.
If you'd like, we can put this on the workshop. We can try to get some information, might be a little bit late. To get the information for this language and then set up the next meeting for B to be able to vote.
And just so you know, Ashley is on Zoom if you want to talk to her at all.
Okay.
She just sent me a message.
Right.
Okay.
Looks like the only thing we were talking about on the section 4 is the 80%.
Changing the 50 to 80 or the 80 to 50. Yeah. Just fine with me.
And can I say one thing?
Sure.
Yeah, that's not going to be necessary if you're not going forward with a section 2.
Oh. Well, there you go.
So Jeff, are you saying that we don't have to take any action? We can leave section 4 in and then talk about it later, but we're not going to lose or have a result?
I would, to keep it clean, I would just do, I would go ahead and delete section 2 and 4. That's cleaner.
Okay.
Move to amend to delete section 4.
Second.
Okay. Section 4. Jennifer.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Councilor Risley,
Yes.
Mayor Seidel.
Yes. Now we will have a roll call vote on the second reading as amended.
Well, actually, we're going to do the roll call now on the first reading.
Oh, sorry. First reading.
So this is reading one. Council McCarthy.
Yes.
Council President Benefield.
Yes.
Councilor Risley.
Yes.
Councilor Ogilvy.
Yes.
Mayor Seidel.
Yes.
Okay.
Unanimous. Now I need a second motion for approving the second reading and adoption of ordinance 2108 as amended.
I move to approve the second reading and adoption of ordinance 2108.
Second.
For the purpose of amending Title 16 subdivision and 17 zoning ordinance, including text amendments, revising lot combinations, residential dwelling size limitations, lot coverage, and floor area ratio limitations for all residential districts while repealing planning developments and providing for reconstruction of pre-existing and non-conforming structures to their existing specifications. As amended? I don't know if that needs to be there or not, but okay. Any other last discussion about this? Sure.
Okay, Council President Benefield.
Yes.
Councilor Risley.
Yes.
Councilor Ogilvy.
Yes.
Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Mayor Seidel.
Yes. Now, let's see if we get a thumbs up from Ashley.
I think the next one should be easier.
Okay, that does that for a while. We'll get back to that stuff. I'm in the near future.
Sure. Are we going to just be discussing this again at the work session?
Yes.
Okay.
And next item is, just had it here. Consideration of resolution 2201 for the purpose of authorizing transfer of control of the franchise held by Sound Broadband LLC.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City of Cannon Beach granted to COSCOM, Inc., a non-exclusive franchise dated October 7th, 2013, to construct, operate, and maintain telecommunications facility in, under, and over the surface of the city's public right-of-way. Section 11 of the franchise agreement requires that COSCOM obtain the city's consent to assign or transfer its rights under the franchise. The city consented, this is under the analysis and information. The city consented and approved the assignment of franchise to Astound Broadband LLC, referred to as Astound, in a July 21st, 2016 letter form. As of August 19th, 2021, Astound Broadband, Radiate Holdings, LP, and Stone Peak Associates, 4 LLC, known as Stone Peak, completed the indirect transfer of control of Astound, and as a result, the indirect control of the franchise has changed. Astound shall remain responsible for all obligations and liabilities under the franchise. The city attorney has concluded that Stone Peak meets the legal, technical, and financial criteria for approval of the transfer of control of the franchise. We have the city attorney, Ashley Driscoll, and also David Von Moritz, who is the corporate counsel and vice president of Wave Broadband. He's on Zoom if we have any questions for him, or if he wants to make a statement.
David.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks very much for having me and appreciate the introduction. I just wanted to thank the council for consideration here. Thank your attorney for their thorough review as well. And welcome any questions if there are any. Otherwise, this is a relatively straightforward matter. And if there are any questions about, services in the city, always happy to answer any questions as they may come.
Thank you. Any questions?
What, do you have any partnership or connection with Spectrum, or are you competitors, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. That would be a competitor of ours.
Okay.
Yep, separate company.
All right. All I know is that we need more broadband here. We're running out of broadband.
Yeah, and if there are any particular needs that any of the council members or public who are in attendance determine or can think of, certainly I'm happy to put my email address in the chat box or something like that, and they can be sent along, and I can pass those along directly to our operations personnel, either on the commercial or residential side. I'd be more than happy to do so.
Yeah, I always know when it's tourist season because my computer and iPad just buffer. They just keep going in circles, the infinite circle. And I just know that there's people in my neighborhood using the broadband. So I think we need more here.
Another thing that seems to be happening is that more people are coming here to work. So the nature of the use has probably changed some and increased.
All right.
Can I ask a question? I am Lori, the finance director for the city. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Do you have any customers inside the city of Cannon Beach?
It's my understanding that we do.
Because I haven't gotten any franchise fee from your company.
Yeah, it's a very good question then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lori, let me follow up with you directly.
Okay.
She'll find you.
And you're the finance director, is that correct?
Yes, I can send you each other's email address.
Okay.
Jennifer will help us out there, our city recorder.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Lori, I can say it's very common for franchise fee payments to be, you probably, probably don't need to tell you this, but sometimes they're quarterly, annual, sometimes there are minimums, that sort of thing. So sometimes they come through under maybe even a different entity name. So I'm certainly happy to, get to the bottom of it one way or another.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And what we're asking is that you approve resolution 22-02. 01?
Okay, need a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry, I went to the next one.
Did the same thing.
I move to adopt the resolution 2201 for the purpose of authorizing the transfer of control of the franchise held by Astound Broadband LLC.
Second.
Jennifer?
Counselor Risley.
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy.
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy.
Yes.
Council President Benefield.
Yes.
Mayor Seidel.
Yes. Thank you, David.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Hey,
thanks, David.
Next item, consideration resolution 2202 for the purpose of approving increases and decreases in the by 2021-2022 budget by making an intra-fund transfer of appropriations. Jeff.
I'll go ahead and handle this one for Jeff. What has happened is that in the past several years, we've had funding consideration for visioning, comprehensive plan, and ordinance, a comprehensive plan and ordinance amendment project. We went to having a code audit discussion, and then during over a period of time, somehow the budget for the code audit was not included in the 21-22 budget. It was considered, but and this is a staff issue, so it didn't make it in there. And so as we move forward with it, we do need to go have funding of $60,000 for the code audit. And then in addition, we have made a new hire of a planner. And we have had additional costs associated with providing telecommunications, those sorts of things, of $4,000. And so we are asking for a total of $64,000 adjustment to the 21-22 community development budget. This was discussed previously at a workshop.
All right.
Okay, do you have a motion?
Move to adopt resolution 2202 for the purpose of approving increase and decreases to the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget by making an intra-fund transfer of appropriation.
Second.
Discussion? Jennifer?
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Counselor Risley,
Yes.
Mayor Stidell.
Yes. Next item, consideration of resolution 2203 for the purpose of establishing parking citation rates. For the purpose establishing parking citation rates. Jason, did you type this?
There's the only recommendation from staff is that you approve or deny the increase that you had suggested last month of making a $50 fine for the parking citation.
Okay. Want to do this one?
Move to adopt resolution 2203 for the purpose of establishing parking citation rates.
Seconded. Jennifer?
Council McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Counselor Risley,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Mayor Stidell.
Yes. Well done, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have some committee or positions to sort out. One of them has two. Want to do a by vote?
Yeah, so our first one is the budget committee. I have two vacancies, but one candidate right now, which is Greg Swedenborg. So if you want to appoint Greg, because he's our only candidate, we can make a motion for that.
I'll move to appoint Greg Swedenborg to fill the vacancy on the budget committee.
Second.
Council President Benefield?
Yes.
Counselor Risley?
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy?
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy?
Yes.
Mayor Stidell.
Yes.
Okay, so next up, we have Design Review Board. We have two candidates for the one vacancy, so I'll do a roll call vote. And you can tell me if they're voting for Fred or Michelle.
Are they here to speak at all?
So we do have,
Michelle is, yes.
Michelle is available on Zoom.
Listen to her.
Well, if you would like to speak, we're going to hook you up. You don't have to if you don't want to, but we're asking.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm here. First off, I'd like to say I appreciate and thank you all for your service. I know it's a hard job. And second, I wanted to apologize for my horrible last minute application. I just filled it out really quick. I kind of didn't understand. I didn't really know that. I don't really understand the process. I'm new to this. But I wanted to give you a little bit of my background, if that's okay. Yeah, so I moved to Cannon Beach about 2.5 years ago. And I've already become really involved in volunteering. I've volunteered at the food pantry and with Haystack Rock Awareness Program. And about a year ago, I opened a little pottery studio downtown with a little showroom. And I've got a lot of strong community business owners and workers support. It's been really great. And as far as experience for design, I've been a working artist for about 25 years. I've been invited to art fairs and conventions all over the world. I've taught workshops at universities in multiple countries, Mexico City, Venezuela, Canada. I've had a lot of gallery exhibitions, et cetera, et cetera. My previous career before I was in art, I worked in stop motion animation for movies and television. And so I feel like I have I feel pretty confident in that I fit the requirements. That said, I love the opportunity to become more involved on how the city functions. I've fallen in love with being in Cannon Beach. I love it being here. I love living here. And I'd love to be part of serving the community and the land that we are on with the design review board. To me, it seems like a great fit. Thanks for your time. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Fred Gast isn't here.
No, he did not reply when I said that he would speak.
He's got a very thorough application, so. he didn't-
Okay, you ready?
Go ahead, Jen.
Counselor Risley,
I'd like to vote for Michelle.
Counselor Ogilvy,
My vote is for Michelle Valagura.
Counselor McCarthy,
Michelle,
Council President Benefield,
Fred Gast.
Mayor Stidell.
Michelle.
Okay, so we have 4 for Michelle, 1 for Ross, and then we need a motion to appoint Michelle.
Move to appoint Michelle Valagura to the Design Review Board.
Second.
Go ahead.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
yes.
Council President Benefield,
If I voted no. so.
Counselor Risley,
Yes.
Mayor Stidell.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Michelle. Next,
Last one tonight is the Parks Committee. We have 2 candidates for 1 opening, Anita Duber and Leslie France, and they both are available on Zoom.
yep. So why don't you raise your hand if you would like to say something? Again, you don't have to if you don't want to, but Anita, if you would like to say something, and Leslie, if you would like to say something.
Hello, counselors.
Hello, Anita.
Yes, I have come to a point in my life that I feel like I really would love to be involved in the city and the Parks Committee. Something that I served on many, many years ago was very enjoyable to me. And knowing most all of you, I would be honored to again be able to serve on the committee and work with the dedicated counselors and hardworking staff and continue in the progress that I see that is happening in Cannon Beach and continuing the community atmosphere and livability for the future. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Anita. Last chance for Leslie, if she would like to. We will move on.
This will be the roll call for either Leslie France or Anita Duber. Council McCarthy,
Leslie France.
Council President Benefield,
Leslie France.
Councilor Risley,
Anita Duber.
Councilor Ogilvy,
Anita Duber.
Mayor Seidel.
Anita Duber.
Okay, so we have 3 for Anita, 2 for Leslie, and then now we would need a motion to appoint.
I move to appoint Anita Duper to the Parks and Community Service Committee.
Second?
Counselor Risley,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
No, I guess.
Council President Benefield,
No.
Mayor Stidel.
Yes. Okay, that's done.
I'd like to say Anita has the nicest handwriting I've ever seen on any applicant.
It is
I've
so
ever seen.
beautiful and readable.
Yeah.
I like your Gs especially.
Did that take care of that?
Yeah, we got Paul, is Paul next?
I'm sorry, Lori will introduce Paul.
Yeah, tonight I have Paul Nielsen, partner with Eisner CPA, is our audit firm. And he's coming live from Orange County. He's been visiting Disneyland. And so I'm sure he'll tell you a little bit about that. So tonight he's going to talk about our financial statements ending June 30, 2021.
I cannot imagine Paul Duber, or I'm sorry, Paul at Disneyland. You know,
Oh, yeah.
True story.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Him and his
Can you
grandkid.
hear me?
Oh, yeah.
There he is.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, how are you?
Auditors of the Caribbean.
Rusty, am I doing the PowerPoint or you? I'm gotta know what's going on with that for some.
Either way.
Yeah, might work better if you do it, knowing my technology skills, if you don't mind. I'll tell you the story that Lori is leading up to.
Okay.
So for Christmas, late Christmas, we flew down here to, I have a daughter that lives in Hollywood. And all our kids and grandkids came down to go to Universal Studios. And everybody made it out yesterday, except for my daughter who lives there, who didn't have to go anywhere, except my wife and I, because our flight got canceled. And the first flight they could get us back to Eugene on is on Thursday. So my wife came up with the idea, we'll grab the 2 grandkids and get a hotel room in Anaheim. And we've been at Disney today and we'll be there again tomorrow.
Lucky you.
Yeah, an extended vacation.
Good.
It's been in the 60s and it's supposed to be 70 down here tomorrow. So
Nice.
it'll make you a little jealous.
I can't wait to tell people that our auditor is from Disneyland.
Yeah, that's a great comment. All right, Rusty, can you hit, we get to the next slide? And hit it 8 times, will you? It's got the, so I don't know how many of you have not heard this before. I think most of you have been through this before. So we'll go through this rather quickly. If I tell you there's no concerns and the audit went well, I know you're ready to say, okay, Paul, why are you still talking? But there's certain things I need to talk about. First of all, auditor's responsibility. If you read the audited financial statements, every place you see our letterhead, that's our responsibility. And even though we prepare the statement, it is your management's responsibility to make sure the statement is correct. In our opinion, we say there are no material misstatements in these statements. So what does that mean? It means if somebody were to read these statements and make a decision, there's no errors in there large enough to affect the decision. No significant findings, no difficulties in counting during the audit. No corrected or uncorrected misstatements, no disagreements with management. Management signs a representation letter. I think it's 6 pages long now that talks about basic, like I always tell you, you didn't keep 2 sets of books, hide one in the closet and show me the other one. Management didn't consult with any other auditors, and there's no other findings or issues. Any questions so far?
Nope.
Was that a question?
No, go ahead.
Can we go on the next page, Rusty? I know, you're the auditor's talking. You want me gone as quick as possible. Is everybody still awake? Might be my question.
Well, you didn't start with a joke like you usually do.
Well, I could tell you, being with you is as much as being in Disneyland. How's about that?
Good enough.
Test, according to Oregon law, we test if you've deposited your money into financial institutions that are allowed by the state. You can put your money into any bank you want to, up to $250,000. After that, any financial institution you put your money into has to be on a list approved by the state treasurer. We do a calculation of your debt limit. That's based on there was a lot of the conversation earlier about the value that the assessor sets on property. It's based on the real market value, not the taxable value that the assessor sets. That's how we calculate the debt limit. We test your budget, make sure it was published properly, make sure it actually masked correctly. And I'll tell you a little story here. I don't know if I told Lori this, but I ran into 2 clients this year. So Lori's pretty good accountant, so she probably knows this already to do this, but they gave their budget publication to the newspaper and paid it and everything, but never checked to see if it made it through the paper, and the paper forgot to print it. And that happened twice. I've never seen that before in my life in all the years I've been doing that. So maybe it's something to start paying attention to. And we review your insurance. We test for programming, revenue from outside sources if they have specific guidance. And by state law, we have to make sure you properly spend your highway user money. You can't just spend that gas tax money that the state gives you on anything you want to spend it on. It has to be spent on specific items. Okay, Ross, do the next one. This shows your change in fund balance and your general fund over the last several years, and you'll see that 2020 year one, your revenue shot way up. And if you do some analysis on last year compared to this year, and it's no surprise, I'm sure, because Lori's been talking to me about it, your room tax revenue was up about 1.3 million. So a significant increase. And then the last one, just the overview of the financial statements. If you ever, and I think you've heard me say this before, if you ever can't sleep at night, read your audited financial statements. That'll solve that problem. But the MD&A, the management discussion analysis on page 3 through 13 is a high level 10,000 foot overview of how the city did in the last year. Your budget reports, because of the way GASB, which is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, has this draft of report now scattered throughout all those pages. We can't put them all together, which would make life easier for you, but that's how we have to do it. You follow the new GASB reporting rule. That's on page 34, 33, 34, and 36. And if you really can't sleep, read that pension footnote. It starts on page 41 and ends at page 45. Very lengthy pension. And there's also, probably more than you want to know, but the GASB passed a rule about if you have retirees on your health insurance plan, there is a liability because they're paying less money than they would if they weren't on your health insurance plan. So now we have a other post-employment benefit liability on your audited statements, and that's talked about on page 46 through 47. That's probably more than you wanted to know about these statements. Any questions?
No questions. Go ahead.
I'm done.
Excellent.
Still awake.
Excellent report.
Tell Mickey hi for us.
Okay. I'll go talk to Mickey tomorrow for sure.
I did have a question of probably of Lori. Hello. Echoing here. This is in the audit, so I don't know, you may go over this in your presentation, but it looks like our liabilities increased by 10% by $883,311. Any idea why our liabilities increased so much?
Is this a specific page of the audit you're looking at?
Let's see. 6. At the top of the page.
Well, accounts payable went up. That's what I wrote here. And
It looks like it's under the management's discussion analysis.
yeah, I write this report.
Well, what did your pension go up by? Because your liabilities include your pension liability.
Right, and that probably went up, I think, Paul.
Yeah, I'm looking in the work papers right now to see what your pension liability went up by. It did go up. I know everybody's went up this year again, so it's no.
Now, this is almost $1 million, so I'm kind of like, whoa.
Look, I'm missing pages or something.
All right, so your GASB, what we call 68 calculation shows that's last year. Where's last year? Your total adjustment for your pension liability was over $1 million. So your share of the state pension and other things they tie to it increased more than $1 million this last year, from last year's report to this year's report.
If you look at page 5 under that table there, you can see non-current liabilities went from 6.8 million to 7.3 million. So that's a majority of it there.
Okay, so it's pension.
And those are your more long-term, liabilities rather than accounts payable. That's more short-term.
I love PERS. The PERS.
Oh, yeah, PERS.
That's your share of what the state tells us what your share of the total PERS liability is statewide.
Any question?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Paul? Not hearing any. Thanks for your work, Paul. You did a great job again. We'll see you next
Appreciate
year.
it. I'll see you next year.
Have a great
All
time,
right.
Paul.
Thanks. Bye.
Very nice. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Dory's moved. Okay, go ahead. Next item for the first quarter.
We got to approve the audit.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too.
We got to approve this.
I move to approve the City of Cannon Beach financial statements and supplemental information for the year ended June 30th, 2021 with independent auditors report.
Seconded.
Seconded. Jennifer.
Counselor Ogleby,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Counselor Risley,
Yes.
Mayor Stidel.
Yes. There we go.
All right, so tonight I have our first quarter, July, August, September 21, current fiscal year reporting. Okay, let me see here. Let's start with cash. Cash is hugely improved over the same time in 2020. And it's even better now, like in October and November and December. So when you see your second quarter report, you'll see that it's continuing on an upward trend. A lot of that's due to room tax. The room tax is really coming in very well. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. We have cash of $9,649,000. And our outstanding GO bond debt is a total of $2,625,000. And so we were going to be soon paying off the 2025. That's going to be just around the corner. It'll be here before you know it.
So for the general fund, on page 2, general fund revenues, you can see that it increased from the prior quarter, 2021, $345,904. And most of that is because we had a little, if you look on line 3, page 2, under 2021, you can see the room tax numbers are very low. That's because this is how it normally is, because we get the room tax in October, so it doesn't show up until your second quarter reports. Even though I have the data here about what came in October, that's more of the second quarter. So that's just kind of an addendum to this quarter here, informational only. But you can see $22,474 there. And that is because hotel property sold during that quarter. And so they paid their tax before, it was actually due. So that's why, and that's contributing to the excess revenue of $345,000. We have franchise fees, that's up a little bit. That's because this quarter includes 3 months of Pacific Power franchise fees. The $13,000 here on line 11, that only was 2 months worth. So it was just a matter of the recording and the timing of the payments that came in. The other thing, the American Rescue Plan grant, that's on line 21, that's $196,239. So that came in, and we're just waiting to kind of budget on how we want to spend that money. Nothing has been budgeted. That will probably come up in the budget. See how we want to do that. I'm looking at qualifying this grant under lost revenue, and that frees up the money to spend however we wish. Instead of saying that we're going to spend it on infrastructure, we could still do that, but once we classify it as lost revenue, there's a calculator that the Treasury has put out to help you calculate whether you truly had lost revenue. And because we had all of that drop in room taxes in the fourth quarter 2020, I'm pretty sure we're going to qualify for that. So that'll make that money much more flexible. So I'm working on that. The other item, we had our safe dividend of $11,308 come in, and that goes under miscellaneous income on line 22. And you can see that we had safe dividends in the prior year. It just didn't come in the first quarter. So you can see that it's not comparing 12,000 in miscellaneous income compared to 794,000. Also contributing to the increase in revenue is the grant, the TSP grant. We didn't have that last quarter in 21. And so those are the things that are driving up that revenue stream for general fund. And if we go to the expenses in the general fund, got to keep in mind it's the busy time of year, July, August, September. So a lot more spending takes place. And so it kind of tapers off then in the second quarter and the third quarter. So if you see some things that maybe might be over the budget target of 25%, that's why. Community development, they've got the TSP going on right now. That's driving up costs, even though we're getting revenue to offset that. So my community programs, that $118,000 on line 2, we gave out the grants of $90,000 in the first quarter. We waited during the COVID year to do that. We kind of postponed them and then did them later. So that's why you're not getting comparative data there. So that's making it look like the expenses are higher. Also, the police department, they're a little bit over target combining with the life-saving program. But we've got more capital outlay in the budget this year. And so those items are getting spent now because we need to order cars. I mean, Jason has a vehicle that he's purchased. And so those are the kinds of things that are making the
this 481,000 increase over the prior year happened, and drove down our fund balance by $851 and $851,441. But keep in mind that property tax hasn't come in yet, so that'll be coming in October. So you'll see some different things in the second quarter where revenues will be coming in and help that fund balance. Okay, page 4, Tourism and Arts Fund. Revenue there includes the $34,000 payment on the loan. Fund balance is going up, so that's good. The transient room tax fund, that's a little bit of the tax from that hotel property that's sold. So that fund balance is going up, which is good. The county TRT fund. I do have to note that on line 14, I have something left out. The year to date under debt service should have 34,000 there. So just make a note for the record that fund balance, that ending fund balance on line 17, year to date should be $332,960. So the building official fund is doing well. They have an increase in fund balance. We're continuing to get construction excise tax. That has an increase in fund balance. RV Park is doing well. And that has an increase in fund balance as well. Okay, on page 5, the recycling fund has a decrease in fund balance of $1,100. It's not anything to worry about there. Water fund, all the water and wastewater utilities are, the revenues are good and coming in. Water fund has an increase in fund balance, so does wastewater. Storm drain, I talked to Karen this evening. She's been doing a lot of repairs and stuff, and so expenses look a little bit high here at 30%. But she says that she should be okay, but she'll let me know if she needs a budget adjustment.
There will be more as a result of the leak we had recently.
Okay.
It's going to impact the road budget too.
Okay. The roads fund, of course, property tax isn't coming in yet, so that's a funding source in the roads fund. So you don't see that here, but so you're seeing a decrease. Also, we have transfers from the general fund that go in there that haven't been made yet. They'll be made in the second quarter. Debt service fund balance is up. I'm on page 6 now, administrative services. You can see there's we've spent 76% of our central services budget, and that's because of the insurance comes in, and it's $176,000. And so that drives up that, and then it tapers off as we go through June 30, because the expenses are nowhere near that high every month. I like to compare what I estimate during the budget to what we actually get as far as our beginning fund balances. And so this table shows you how that compares, just like the general fund. When I'm estimating, I estimated 2.4 million. We actually got 3.4 million. So that's a favorable variance that just, it's good, because you don't want to have the opposite happen. That would be bad. Except for, so they all have favorable variances except for the affordable housing plan, and that's related to those refunds that we sent out. I guess probably when I was estimating, I didn't know the extent of the amount that we were going to have to refund. So, but that's okay because the funds doesn't really have any expenses at the moment. 7 is our room tax data through October 31. You can see on, well, I guess I don't have a line number here. I need to fix that for next time. I guess what would be number 2, the 2022 room tax came in at 2.4 million. And the budget was 1.9 million for that quarter, so it's looking really good. Page 8 is information on tourism and arts fund. Line 24, you can see under the first quarter here, 211,000. That's how much went into the TAF fund as revenue. You won't see any distributions here because we don't do those until November 15th. Page 9 shows the budget and actual and the variances for each of the recipients of room tax, general fund, TAF, and TRT. So it gives you an idea of where we're at. And then every first quarter, I bring you information on property tax. We're projected to get $1,160,752 for debt service and the general fund. The road fund is expected to get $272,000 this year. And that's coming in currently. Taxpayers, if you have a $200,000 assessed value, pay just the city alone, $220.94 based on our permanent rate and the rate for debt service. Of course, you're going to pay other taxes too, to schools and all of those other jurisdictions. But if you double that, if you have a $400,000 assessment, then you're going to pay $440. So that's kind of what we get from our citizens. On page 11, our assessed value has gone up 3.2%. It is now at $1,050,750,628 of value. So, and that's pretty typical because Oregon doesn't allow anything greater than 3% increase. So the other 0.28 is from new structures or new improvements that came into the city. What else is here? Then page 12, then I just give you all the other cities in our county, the information, so you can kind of compare how we stand with everyone else. Our latest population statistic is 1,740 people.
Is that population right?
No,
That's not right.
doesn't
It's the
sound,
latest one that's been certified by PSU.
But our census is us down to 1481 or something.
The census,
yeah.
well, I don't think PSU has taken that into account yet. And we always go by what PSU says.
We've got a number of calculations between census. And so as Lori said, I don't know if it's been taken into account that we've got a lower census number. But the PSU allows us to make adjustments to our estimated population in the intervening 10 years.
The PSU numbers come from the state kind of mandate that we have to use their numbers for a lot of things.
Yeah, you mean for like revenue distributions?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the number we have to use.
We'd like that number to be as high as possible. Because that affects our distribution of a lot of the gas tax and other things.
Maybe we could count tourists. Can we count tourists?
Yeah.
Okay.
Read on a curve.
Thank you, Lori. That was a good report. Any questions for her?
No, good job as always, Lori. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the last item is Scope of review determination for the Genie appeal of planning commission decision to reverse the administrative decision to issue a building development permit.
Jeff, are you available? You with us?
I am. Are you, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. So this is a scope of review determination for the Genie appeal, planning commission decision to reverse administrative decision to issue a building and development permit. This came before the planning commission, and their decision was to reverse the administrative decision for the Genie. This is, of course, the second time on this property this has happened. And Mr. Alterman, the attorney for Mr. Najimi, has requested a review of the decision in an application dated December 10th and received December 13th within the 14th day appeal period. And he's requesting it to have it limited to new information, which really speaks to a decision that's been handed down on the easement and the agreement that has been reached between the Hardings and the Najinis. And this information was not available at the time. It was during the court process when the planning commission made their decision. So he's asked to enter some new information, and as the scope of review, it allows you guys to either go on the record to allow the limited that Mr. Alterman is asking for, to remand it back to the planning commission, or to do it de novo with opening it up to the record completely open. Any questions?
Jeff, do we have to, I know that there's a request with a limited scope of review, but do you have a recommendation?
Sure. I think that this is, highly advisable to go ahead and allow this new information. This was not something that could have been heard at the time, and definitely changes the building and development permit process. You really, in my opinion, have two ways you could go about this. You could remand it back to the planning commission and have them look at it with the new information, but they've already made their decision. You can go ahead and take this new information and look at this agreement, see what that does to the agreement. Is supposedly has the garage removed, and then what that would do to the building and development permit and the effect on that. So either remand it back to planning commission or see it yourself. I would recommend that you go ahead and make that decision, since it has, been quite a process to begin with Mr. Genie trying to get his home built.
Well, Jeff, are we going to see something that is really going to change the likely outcome of the planning commission's decision?
Yeah, yes. I mean, if Mr. Alterman, as he suggests, even during the planning commission, that this was before circuit court, Clatsop County, and that the Hardings had reached this agreement, if they have agreed to remove that garage structure, then quite likely the building permit then falls within the permissible square footage and everything. So there's no need. The conflict right now is over that square footage amount. So I think this would be, new information that has a vital impact upon that decision.
Well, I'm not sure I understood. Is the settlement complete and final?
I have not seen that documentation, but Mr. Alterman says it has, and he's confirmed it. So, I can't say if I haven't actually seen it, but that's what that's what he's hoping to present.
Jeff, would you be recommending de novo then?
No, just this is limited to these, this agreement.
All right, gotcha.
Wouldn't we just remand it back to the planning commission so they can take a look at this and perhaps change their recommendation rather than the council changing their recommendation?
I agree with you, Mike. I'd rather see it the way it is or send it back. Because we should be looking at what the planning commission was looking at.
You're waiting for a response from Jeff. I don't know if he knows we're waiting for him.
Oh, you're waiting for me. Sorry. No, I thought you guys were discussing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yes, you have both of those options open to you. You, in fact, have all four. But yeah, I think those are the two best ways to go. And if you're more comfortable letting the planning commission look at the new materials, they can get that back to you.
That'd be my recommendation.
In that case, I agree. I think the planning commission personally should see whatever's new.
Did you catch that, Jeff?
I did. And so if no disagreement with that, then we'll go ahead and do that, okay?
Great.
Jeff, will they hear it at the January meeting or would it be scheduled for later?
It's going to have to go back before the planning commission. So I think it will likely be, I'll have to look at our notice requirements for a remand. If there's no notice requirements, they may be able to see it at this meeting. So then it would be probably at your next meeting.
Yeah, but I was asking about the planning commission.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It could go back before the planning commission, which would then be back before, could possibly be back before the city council if the planning commission decides to move it forward.
All right, thanks, Jeff. So, limited information? All right. And I'm sorry, no, back to planning commission.
Remanding it back to the.
Yes. All right.
Will do. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Jeff.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Brings us to the end of the meeting. Yeah, status reports or communications?
I'd like to ask Jason how New Year's went.
New Year's went well. We had all hands on deck on Friday night, and the officers stayed busy. But we also had 12 and other volunteers that were helping the spotters again, like they did on the 4th of July. And just really impressive. Great to see so many people that care so deeply about their community and wanting to work and help, and they all have great, fun-loving attitudes about it. So it was good. But no, it was a success. We had, as we were just coming in to do the briefing here with the volunteers, we had one mortar that had gone off near Jefferson or Jackson, and Officer Patel had been on the beach and went up, but of course they were gone. And I said, you guys started too late, but they did point out one that was down at the Televana parking lot that they thought they had seen, and both Jill and I were in the area when it came up and there was nobody in the parking lot. Cody did contact 2 families on the beach that had sparklers and they were sighted. And then there were some Chinese lanterns that had been seen coming from the area of the Hallmark, and Cody and Chris had seen them both on the beach, and when they approached, there was nobody in the area, and I came up and went into the parking lot of the Hallmark, but nothing. So they stayed busy. Thankfully, no DUIs the entire weekend, and like I said, there were only 3 or 2 calls that were generated from the citizens. And so it was very good. I know that Seaside had many calls, and so did, I think of where it was. Somebody had said, oh, up in Vancouver, they said was just nonstop until 4 a.m. And so I think that our education is going really well, getting the word out, and just the help of the citizens promoting it and pushing it and educating. But like I said that night, Cody had gotten down on the beach and said there were 16 bonfires, and he contacted each one and said, just to let you know, there are no fireworks allowed. And so I think that that education is important. And we'll keep doing it. I know we had a newer CERT member that after the weekend was over said, that was great. We should do that on the 4th of July. And one of the other CERT members said, yeah, we did. We were all on the beach. And so it's good. I really enjoy working with them and we have a good time. But, you know, people like Debatia does a great job advertising and helping us with the flyers and that type of thing to educate the people, which is really the most important part.
Thank you very much.
I think one reason they went crazy in Vancouver is because they allowed them to sell the fireworks they didn't sell last year. So
yes,
fireworks sales prior to New Year's. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was concerned about one letter we got, the people that got cited for sparklers, not that part of it, but they said that there was no information at the hotel at Hallmark, and they couldn't find it on the city website.
No, well, yeah, it's on the city website, but it's certainly something that we need to promote more with the chamber and the hotels and getting that word out. And I know we had it covered thoroughly on the 4th of July, that weekend prepared, and I know that the hotels have the info out. So it's certainly something we need to push for January or December of next year to get that word out in the hotels. Because yeah, there was one, and Cody felt bad, you know, contacting the families, and one man had said, so I can have this big fire behind me, you know, bonfire, but I can't have this little sparkler for my child. And he said, he came from, they were both from Washington, but he had originally come from
Germany.
And he said that, yeah, he said, this is what we do in Germany. He said it's a sparkler. And so, yeah, that was tough for him.
Yeah.
But thankfully we did lower the fines, which was made it a little bit easier. Yeah.
For people that are cited and would like to have their case adjudicated, do they have to appear in person, or is that something they can write a letter, or?
They can do both. They can come in and see the judge, or they can write a letter and request leniency, or you know, give their side of the situation. The judge can make a decision based on that.
Okay.
Yeah. And like I said, you know, last year on the 4th, we had a combination of that where some explained to the judge, and the judge put it in abeyance. She had made it $100 fine, but put the rest in abeyance. If you have another issue within the next 12 months, you'll have to pay that full fine. And so the judge has that ability.
And then resigned.
And what?
And then he resigned.
Yes, but we do have a new one that is starting hopefully in the next month or so. So
Actually, January 1st was his official start. And it sounds like he's going to have an interesting first meeting in January.
Yeah.
Any other communications or good of the order?
I just have one thing. I sent you folks draft scope for the preliminary work for the grant process for the PFT. And just wanted to know if you were okay with what we were going to bring back, because this is collecting the information. We bring the information back to you, and then you will discuss. It was an email I sent. I was happy to hear if you want.
When did it get sent out?
Yes, it is.
Oh, no, it's good.
Yeah, a couple
days. I missed it totally.
Yeah. So what'll happen is that we'll bring back data about how much various places would need to spend to be able to comply. And then from there, we will look to you for direction regarding a grant program. And one of the main requirement that we're going to be looking for in somebody that we hire will be a great familiarity with the majority of the point of sale systems, so they can talk with everybody and they will make their decision. They can let the people know this is what I think is going to need to be done. They'll give us a report on each site they visit, and then the operator of the restaurant will get a copy of that report also. But we're not making any promises or any discussion as far as what the potential grants are, because that has not been decided. And I'm sure that we'll be working with the fire board too, because we'll be splitting that cost.
Bruce, how does this affect how be able to get something out to the restaurants and anybody else that'll be paying this tax by February 1st, like we had discussed?
This will not make a change. This is just to gather information about the grant.
Okay.
We already have a lot of information on the frequently asked questions. And we can be reaching out to folks to say what questions do you have, because a lot of it is pretty clear. It gets fuzzy around the toasted bagel versus the untoasted.
There's a few businesses that fall into that category.
Right, but a lot of it, like if the restaurants, if it's fluid, it doesn't get taxed. If it's not, it does. So we should be able to provide that kind of information. I think most of it is already out there. But we will provide to try to make it as clear as possible.
And would you be able to have that? Because we won't, other than a work session, if we're trying to meet that February 1st deadline. Talked about.
Well, again, a lot of it, anything that we currently have, we can provide by February 1st. I would prefer to work from that and then address questions.
That's fine.
So we will be able to get out a good deal of information in that time frame.
Okay.
Remember, it was voted on 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And it's been, who knew whether it's ever going to be approved? We still don't know. But
yes, I
think we feel comfortable now and move it
as if it is passed.
And we are. We are.
Firm then be doing all of this before that February 1st deadline, or would be doing it after?
It would probably be, I don't know if they could do it before, it's possible, but we still have to go through a hiring process. And the two are really not combined.
No.
So we will get both out as quickly as we can. We'll get out the existing information, and then we will get this company started as soon as we can. Because remember, you have to make decisions on, you and the fire board, what grant process you're going to do. And right now, I don't know what the potential costs are. I've heard, numbers all over the place, but the only thing they have to be able to do is taxable, non-taxable. And if the system can do that, they've got what they need. And if it can roll up the quarterly report. As far as our ability to go ahead and hit the ground running, Lori's here. We are going to use the same system that we use right now on TLT, and it'll be modified to go ahead and address the collections that we would have under this process. So we don't see a great amount of work that's going to need to be done going into before July 1st. So we want to answer the questions. We want to resolve the grant things so everybody has time to get their systems updated. We will also be talking to Yahats and Ashland, just to say, anything else that you saw when you started that you might be able to give us a tip.
We do have a draft document that we are working on currently.
Okay.
With that information.
Yeah.
We emailed Andrew to do a cover to make sure the cover is kind of eye catching to hopefully get people to read it. And so we have started that process.
Oh, good. All right, thank you. Because I knew that you had the Q&A from before, which was really good.
Yeah, but we're dumping that into a document that has questions, it has answers. There'll be links to forms. We'll work with the finance department to get their information in it so that way they have all the information in one PDF that you can click links to get to our website for whatever information you need.
And TLT standpoint, there's two things that seem to come out of it. One is your total revenue for the quarter. And then the other is the amount that was applicable to the PFT. Ashley, do you have anything else to comment on?
No, good evening, Council. It's been, a rather long meeting, so I'll keep my comments brief. I sent an email earlier this week about the state of the election challenge at the county. As I noted in that email, in order to perfect that petition, the petitioners had to take two actions required by statute. One was to officially serve the county, and the second was to post notices. They haven't taken either of those actions, so the court issued a notice of dismissal within 30 days, which is a typical action when a petitioner has failed to pursue a legal action. So for all intents and purposes, the city should be moving forward with its preparation, as you guys are clearly doing from this conversation, preparation and implementing the PFT. It's extremely unlikely at this point that the petitioners are going to revive their election challenge and they will be successful. And lastly, I did want to compliment the mayor on the ordinance amendment and passage today. I was very proud. I told Jen that maybe my work here is done. You guys did a great job.
No, we had a script that helped.
The script did help, yes. Thank you.
Thanks.
So unless
Ashley.
you have questions, I'm just going to keep my comments pretty brief on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have one question for Bruce. Comment about the fact that the COVID was getting worse and people were curious if we were going to put the signs back up. I thought we had talked about that not too long ago. Mask signs.
We did. And what the problem then, and I'm not sure, I'd have to talk to Karen, is that we had teams working or people working separately. Because fortunately, so far, we have not had a case transmitted, from an employee to an employee. And for example, in the Public Works Department, everybody's in their own vehicle, so they're not sharing that kind of thing. And you need two people to do that. I'll find out if we still have that restriction, because all the signs are still in my office and can be hung.
Yeah, it'd be nice. I've heard quite a few people ask for them to be back up.
Let me see if we're past that point with what we're doing.
Okay. Anything else?
I just want to say that Jeff was not at Disney World with all the sounds and stuff that was going on in the back. He was trying to retrieve his wife, who has been caught up in the whole travel adventure, and was finally making it back. And he texted me and told me, I got Marilyn. So that was the noise.
I could see a picture though with him and Paul and the log thing dropped in the water and waving.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. At that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.